Back on political connections, President-elect Trump got huge numbers from Latino voters. To break down what happened to the Democrats and how the Republicans not only won the White House and beyond, but there's so much at stake here. He's here, everybody. Can we please talk? Podcaster host Mike Leon joining us on the show. And you have another title, too.
That's right. I'm Director of Strategy over at the Free and Equal Election Foundation. Good to see you, Ybeth. Thank you for having me.
Okay, so pat yourself on the shoulder here. I have never had a podcaster on the show before, so you are the first.
All right. First time for everything. Good.
Okay, first, big picture wise, I want to talk about the data that you've been tracking, and so we have as well here on Spectrum News when it comes to the Latino voters across the U.S. Mr. Trump, 55% of the Hispanic men across the U.S., but when it comes to Latino women, the numbers were lower than that. So walk me through how the Republicans were able to get such high numbers with the Latino vote.
Yeah, Ybeth, this is something, look, you and I are a part of this community, right? Obviously, my family lives out there in Osceola County, out in the Kissimmee area. My mom's been in Orlando for forever. I am Puerto Rican and half Cuban. I live down here in the Miami area. Trump won Miami-Dade County. This is the first time a Republican has won this county in a minute. And the margins from 2016 in Hillary Clinton to 2020 and President Biden, Donald Trump has significantly continued to cut into the Latino vote, specifically around, like you mentioned, Latino men. And I think the message was real simple this time around. I may not agree with it, but it's very simple. It's la cartera. It's the purse. It was the wallet. They ran on, are you better off from 2019 to now in 2024? And some of the focus groups that I did, not only here in Florida, but nationally, really centered around a second theme outside of immigration, which we can get to in a second, which some data shows that in some of the counties. But the second theme was really around America first. And could Kamala Harris actually sit down with some of these world leaders? And they felt Donald Trump was a little bit stronger in that category. Regardless of how we feel about that, those are kind of the 2 points that I saw. And the data kind of outlined that. Like you just mentioned, Latino males were significant in terms of how they voted for Donald Trump. And even though Kamala Harris did win more Latina women, the margin was down from 2016 and from 2020, and you just can't make up those margin of voters.
One of the things that I know you and I have talked offline, and I was part of, is internal polling. With a lot of the campaigns will not share that voluntarily. If it gets out there, it's because it was leaked. But one of the things that I can now say, I was in a call that some journalists were asked to listen as part of, journalists, and listen to some of the campaign members. In that call was Tony Fabrizio. And he said about 3.5 weeks ago that in Arizona, Trump was down with the Latinos. However, the numbers were increasing so fast. He said, if this trend continues, we will see the numbers for the Latinos go for Trump. Fast forward, here we are. And one of the things he mentioned in that call, and at that time was off the record, that particular part about the Latino vote in Arizona, was that he said a lot of the media is talking about Latinos. What we're seeing on the ground, internal polling, is that there's multiple generations in a Latino household. Abuela y abuelo, then there's mom and dad, or mom and dad, and then there's the adolescents who are able to vote, and each different subgroup is voting differently. Your thoughts on the variety of the Latino vote? Big picture wise, we talked about that, but here in Florida.
Yeah, just staying real quick, Maricopa County, I think there's like 31% Latinos that live there, 1.3 million Latinos that live there. He flipped Maricopa County, just as an example. And here in Florida, I mentioned it before, he flipped Miami-Dade County. He flipped Osceola County from 2020 out there up in Orlando. And I think what that speaks to is something that you and I go through, right? Which is there's a lot of religion in the Latino communities, right? A lot of people grow up with Catholicism in their life. And you do have abuelo and abuela a little bit more conservative. They may have come here from another country and they've seen some of the oppression, but they lean a little bit more conservative, whereas papi and mommy are a little bit different. And then when you get down to the kids who don't know how to save money and only care about social issues like the war in Gaza and not supporting the Biden-Harris administration, you're going to get 3 different type of voters that you can get data from. But I think when you break it all down, the biggest thing, the through line that I always took from specifically the Latino voters, besides the economic issues, Maricopa County, Arizona, Hidalgo County, Cameron County, right on the border in Texas, Biden won those counties. He won those counties in 2020 by double-digit percentage points. Trump flipped all of those counties in 2024 because immigration was a core issue. We can get into why Latinos don't feel a certain way about helping out those that are trying to come here from other countries that we left. Pero, be that as it may, the data is the data, and it shows that those were the two central issues that the Latino households were focused on. They felt Donald Trump was better positioned for.
I know you're a big boxing fan, and so I'm going to throw this analogy your way. Democrats are now criticizing other Democrats. I've seen that on social media and different platforms. Are they on the ropes right now? How can they get back up and try to, be stronger between now and 4 years from now?
Hey, Beth, what a good analogy you just gave me. First off, I do some work in the boxing space, and boxing is a microcosm, right? Because styles make fights, and Donald Trump kept coming forward. It doesn't matter if he's swinging wildly. He was landing some of these punches, and Kamala Harris just couldn't land some of these punches. But keeping with that sports analogy just for a second here, Democrats right now, one of the big things that I got as I do all these television hits across, and I'm in these green rooms of some of these strategists and campaign managers, my question is always, who is on the ground that looks like me, that lives in those communities, that's talking to these people? Because I think, and I've heard this from other strategists on television in the aftermath, the time for finger pointing is not now. What the time is for right now for the Democratic Party is to stop being polite and start being real, like the real world tagline. And it's to start talking the way Republicans are, because Republicans are throwing things against the wall and letting it fly down. Whereas Democrats are very cautious about the way they talk to somebody else for fear of maybe alienating that person or alienating somebody else within the party. And I think Democrats have some soul searching to do here. I had mentioned this on Super Tuesday in March, that I felt that down here in Florida, listening to the radio messages in Spanish, the Trump campaign was doing a better job than the Biden campaign. And I went on television and warned that. It doesn't mean I was supporting the former person. It means that I'm here on the ground. I do translations for a living for a major network, and I saw what the Trump campaign was doing better than the Biden campaign. So fix what you are doing. And I think right now, Democrats, get out of your own way for a second, take a step back, and start listening to the people on the ground that know a lot more than the DC politicos and strategists out there.
Okay, that's another reason why we wanted to have you on the show, is because these big figures, Harris and Trump, they were both doing podcasts. That's all we kept hearing. And because that's your world, I wanted to just get your take on everything here after elections. Thank you so much, Mike Leon, podcaster, host. Can we please talk? Thanks for being on the show.
Thank you for having me, Beth.